Hello GC family, and welcome back to our Train at Home series. Today we are going to break down a fundamental movement that accompanies many of our striking techniques that we use in both Krav Maga self-defense as well as in many other types of martial arts. To help me demonstrate what this movement is, I've asked one of my most difficult students to join me today. Come on in. Appreciate you being here. Stand by. So, what we're going to talk about today is the pivot. If you're not a foot person, this probably isn't the video for you because we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at Drew's feet. First of all, let's have Drew demonstrate the pivot, and then we'll talk about why this is such an important part of some of the techniques that we do. Drew, go ahead, give us a couple of pivots. Okay, thank you very much. Here's the thing. That pivot creates range and it creates power. It adds to the devastation of some of our most basic strikes. For example, give us a jab cross. Good. Now, give us a jab without the pivot and hold at the apex. Okay, I want you to look at where Drew's hand is right now, okay? Now go ahead and add the pivot. Did you see that? 2 to 3 extra inches of range simply by lifting that heel up off the floor and pivoting that around. Now if we're looking at the quadrants that we've put on the floor here, his heel with that pivot on the jab is moving from the line in between quadrants 3 and 4 well into that area between 2 and 3, perhaps even into quadrant 2. Drew, why don't you go ahead and give us a couple of hooks real time. Thank you, sir. Let's look at that. Drew, go ahead and give us your left hook. Good. Now do it again, slow motion, freeze the apex, no pivot. Just like our jab, go ahead and add the pivot. Look at the amount of range that he achieved by adding that pivot. With the pivot, he is able to add range through the hips, which ultimately gives him more range top of the house. In Krav Maga, this is especially important because every strike matters. We're not throwing a flurry to create points. We are trying to land that one devastating blow that will finish the fight or at least stall the fight long enough to get out, get home safe. Now let's talk about round kicks. That pivot is the most important thing when it comes to round kicks. Looking at the quadrant on the floor, give us that right round kick, Drew. Good. And the left. Do you see the range of that pivot? When he throws that right round kick, that heel comes up from between quadrants 3 and 4, well into the middle of quadrant 1. Same thing with the left kick, comes well into the range of quadrant 2. That is a massive amount of rotation. And here's what that does. All right, Drew, I want you to throw the right round kick and we're gonna freeze you at the apex of your kick. And hold. Okay, look at where his hips are facing right now. They're facing me. They went from facing you to facing me. That is momentum, that is trajectory, that is using your kick to break your opponent in half. Go ahead and reset. Good. Now a nice slow motion. I want you to throw that round kick without the pivot. Leave your heel planted firmly on the floor. And hold at the apex. Couple of things we want to look at. Where are his hips pointed? They're no longer pointed at me. They're pointed more or less at you, somewhere between you and me. What's happening with that knee? The knee is done. That kick is not going any further because that knee is locked because the heel is planted firmly on the floor. What happens if Drew decides to throw that kick as hard as he can without popping that heel up, without pivoting his foot? He's gonna blast right through his knee. Maybe he'll land an awesome kick at the expense of his own knee joint. That is why I yell at some of you when we're doing our fight class and you're not pivoting. You know who you are. Thank you guys for checking us out. Keep checking back the YouTube channel, social media. We'll keep pushing out more content for you as long as we're not able to be on the mat with you. Thank you. Miss you all. Do what is hard today. Do the impossible tomorrow.